Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. I hope you're all okay. I'm Keisha Thompson. I'm an artist, writer, producer based in Manchester. Well, I'm from Manchester as well, because sometimes that means a different thing, doesn't it? But yeah, I was born and raised and everything here. Yeah, and today's session, I'm just gonna focus on storytelling devices. We've only got an hour, so I'm just gonna like plunge us right in and just get going really, so that we've all got something that we can just play with, and that's really all it's going to be. Just kind of messing around, a little activity, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. If you do have any questions at any point, feel free to just unmute. I'm going to be sharing my screen, so that's probably the best way. If you can just, just shout out, or if not, if you put a question in the chat, then Hannah can try and flag that and let me know. If you think that it's more of a question that we could ask at the end, there's going to be a little period where we can have a little discussion, then yeah, maybe the chat is the best for that. Okay, so I will share my screen now. Can everyone see that? Brilliant. Okie dokie. So as said, we're going to look at storytelling devices. But before we get into that, I just wanted everyone to tell me their name and what deluxe paint they feel like today. So like, I don't want any bland colours. I want like, you've really got to describe what type of colour you feel like today. So I'm going to say that I feel like, Hannah will know why I'm saying this. You're in yellow. Just before the session, I had to kind of rejig and do a bit of a scramble because my niece is staying over and she just decided to just wee where I was set up. So that was great. So you feel a bit icky. So I just feel a little bit like that. So I'm Keisha and I feel like you're in yellow. And then because we know how these Zoom things work now, I'm going to name the person that I want to speak next. So Karen, can you just tell us what colour you feel like today? Oh, it was John. You've changed your name. It's like, where's Karen?
Sorry, John. I was on my administrator's Zoom, so I'm not Karen, I'm John. I'm a tangerine twist, I think.
Oh, nice. Do you want to give us any reasons to why, or?
Just because I'm melting, it's so swelteringly hot, so I feel like tangerine is layering me wanting. It's what I'd like to drink, so yeah.
Okay, cool. You don't have to go for what's on the screen, but yeah, cool. Next person is Ian, please.
Hi there. John pinched mine, I think, but I wish I was a nice, cool willow tree today, I think.
Great, thank you. Zoe?
Hiya. I am going to say buzzing grey, which doesn't make any sense at all, but I feel like quite excited, but I've also got quite a lot of sitting down work to do, so duality.
Great. Gabriel? Sorry, I've written these names super quick. So, yes, Gabriel, there is a Gabriel.
Hi, I'm Gabby. I think you. Sorry, it says Gabrielle, but that's
Gabrielle.
Just sorry. That's what it's meant to be. No, God, no, don't worry, don't worry. But you can call me Gabby. I think I'm sea foam serene because I'm feeling pretty chilled and I'm excited and ready to go.
I like that. Lynn?
Hi, I'm a puddle of purple pudding. My husband has literally just come home with 5, 6, 7 pots of tester paint, and that was the one I liked the most.
Great. Lizzie?
Hello. I feel like a dusky red sky that you might have saw in Manchester last night, because inwardly I feel beautiful, but outwardly I feel really hot and red and sticky.
I hear you. Thank you. Tom?
I think I feel like whatever colour red and green become when they like mix together, I sort of feel like a Twister ice lolly that's just melted into itself. I think both because of the weather and just I feel quite stressed but calm at the same time. So just a lot of mixing.
Cool. Thank you. Alex?
Hey, I can't really think of like an adjective like for it, but like bloody beetroot or like something along those lines.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is it Aisling or Ashling? I've had someone else change their name. Oh, is that Degna?
Yeah, I think we've lost Aisling.
Oh,
Sure,
okay.
unless they've changed their name. But yeah.
Okay. Becky next. Becky, can you hear us? You don't need to turn on your video.
Myself. I would be along the same themes as everybody else, a puddle blue, because I just feel like I've melted into one big sweaty puddle.
Thank you. And Barbara?
I'm going to go for denim drift in honour of my maternity jean waistband, which is drifting bigger by the day.
Great. Next we've got Jess.
I think I'll go for a Diet Coke can silver because I'm shiny in this heat, and also a little bit like excited and buzzy.
Thank you. And Degna.
Hiya. I'm going to go for wasabi chocolate. So we're going to be painting my daughter's bedroom, and this is one of the colours. And so it's like a green, but it's a hint of brown. And so you can either look at it as being like swampy and sludgy, or quite a restive colour, depending on your frame of mind. That's how I feel.
Cool. Okay, have I missed anyone out? I hope not. Hannah, did you want to tell us what colour you feel like?
Yeah, much like everybody else, I liked the beetroot. I do feel a bit like a bloody beetroot, but almost like I've been like steamed, so I'm all slightly soggy as well. What a delightful image to give you all.
Thanks, I loved it. Okay, so I've done something a bit cheeky, right? And what I usually do when I'm doing a big workshop is I get everyone to do this activity, which is called What You Get for Free. Essentially, I ask everyone to stand in front of the rest of the room and say something really simple, like what the weather is. And then we all feed back to that person to tell them what they give out for free without even trying. So when you're not even trying to be a performer or be a writer or be creative, what comes across. So I've tried to make a little note of that as to what came across to me via Zoom. So if you could just take a little note of this, because I think it's really important when you're writing, when you're performing, when you're doing anything creative, to know what your default is, to know what it is that people already read from you, what you already bring to the table when you're not even trying, because you can do two things with that. You can either capitalize on it and push it, or you know that you might have to subvert it. If you know that you come across in a way that's very timid, for example, or very smiley, and you need to play a role that's quite sinister or serious, or you need to be intimidating, you're going to have to work a bit harder or come from another angle to make that happen for you. So it's really good to have a sense of awareness of what you give out to people when you're not even trying. So what I've written down is, John, I got that you were very smiley. Ian, I got that you were very calm. and straightforward. Zoe, I got a subtle humour. I felt like there was a kind of like potential for sarcasm there. Gabrielle, I felt like you were very energetic. There was a lot of hand gestures and stuff. That was really cool. Lynn, I thought you were very endearing. You were very open, and it felt very cozy. And maybe that's because you've got a blanket behind you. Lizzie, I thought you were very sultry. We didn't see you, but yes, I got a sultriness from your voice. Tom, I thought you were very open. Alex, I thought you were very giggly. Becky, I got a shyness or a quietness from you, and that doesn't have to be a negative, by the way, but that's just the tone that came across when you were speaking. Barbara, I thought the opposite. I thought you were quite vocal, and there was potential for you to be quite a lot louder than you were already being, which was nice. Jess, I thought you came across as very cerebral and chilled, and someone who is kind of thinking a lot. And then Degna, I've written that you're very expressive and intricate. Your language, I mean, I know that you're a poet and you're a writer anyway, but your language was just very interesting and poetic, and you were using a lot of hand gestures. So they were the things that I got from you guys when you weren't even trying. So the first task that I would like us all to do is to just pick an item that's in your proximity that you're happy to play with. It can literally be anything. It could be a book, it could be a recipe book, sorry, it could be a ball, it could be socks, it could be Tic Tacs, it could be a blanket, just anything. And once you've got your object, could you hold it up so that we can see it? Just so I know that you've got something to play with. Nice, nice objects. Or maybe if you are not showing your screen, if you could just drop us a little message in the chat or put a little thumbs up using the reactions thing so that we know that you've got your object. Great, thank you. Wonderful. I think Jess and Barbara have gone for a wander. Oh, Barbara's got, yeah, great, great. We've got all our items. Wonderful. Okay, so the next bit of this task is think of a short story that you'd be happy to share with the group. A time when you learned something about yourself. So the example that I will use as a reference for this session is the first time that I essentially stood up to my dad. So he likes to send me books quite a lot. So I've got a solo show that's called Man on the Moon, and it's based on my relationship with my dad. And our relationship was mainly him sending me books and letters. And yeah, I remember this one time when I was sat outside of his flat waiting for him, and I was reading Noughts and Crosses, and he doesn't like fiction. He likes factual books only. So when he came back and saw that I was reading this fictional book, he wasn't happy, and also he was annoyed because it was a book that he'd not given to me. So he was like, why are you reading this book? Blah, blah, it's rubbish. Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I like this book and you would like it too, and whatever. And then he was like, well, who would you rather listen to, your dad or your teacher? Because I was telling him that the book had been recommended by school. And I just said my teacher, because I see him more often. And that really upset him. And I think, I mean, yeah, I think I made him cry and he walked off. But I didn't realise I could do that. I was only like 12. I didn't know that I could have that kind of power and that I could hurt my dad in that way. So yeah, that was when I learned that I could stand up to my dad. So that's my story. So it can be something as simple as that, just a moment where you had just a little situation, a little exchange, something happened to you and it made you think, oh, I can do this, or I'm that kind of person. And I'm just going to give you 3 minutes to kind of bullet point that story. So where does it start? Where is the middle? Where is the kind of crux? Where's the twist? Great, Becky. A disposable camera, that's a great item. And then how does it end? So very simple, just what is the arc of this story? And try to be quite brutal, like that story that I just told. Can everyone see that? Yeah, great. I've actually turned it into a poem, and it's a series of noughts and crosses charts. So I've got a collection of poems and the script of the show that I just mentioned. And when I was thinking about this story, I was grappling with how I would relay it. At one point I wanted it to be in the theatre show, and that didn't feel right, felt a bit too tangential and stuff like that. So I really played around with what device can I use to tell this story. And then it just became apparent to me that I was like, this is a conflict. This is between me and my dad. And actually it's about the book Noughts and Crosses. It should be a series of noughts and crosses tables. So that's the way that I decided to convey the story in the end. Yeah. So in terms of my work, I'm very much about form and playing around with devices, because I feel like that's where the magic happens. I think as we know, there are only like 7 stories really, like 7 different types of stories apparently. So the creativity comes with how you choose to tell it and what form you pick to do so. And I think when we're forced to be really restrictive or accidental sometimes with that, interesting things can happen. So that's why I asked for you to pick an object before I asked you to pick the story, because I feel like if I'd have told you to pick the story and then asked you to pick an object, you might have picked something that was a bit more obvious. So what I want you to do now is merge the two, basically. So let us go back to my PowerPoint. If it will work. There we go. Task 3. So relay your story using your device. So this can be done in whatever way you like. So you can choose to draw something, or you can choose to perform something to us. It might be verbal, it might be non-verbal. You might do it all through the object itself. You could write something for us, but be informed by maybe the shape or the smell of the object. You know, if the object is a food-based object, maybe you decide that every single thing that you use to describe within the story has a kind of food reference to it, or a sweetness to it, or a sourness to it. Does that make sense, what I'm asking? So it's very specific and very loose at the same time. Because yeah, I kind of work across loads of different mediums, so I don't like to like pin anyone down. And it might be that you write poetry, but maybe today you feel like doing a dance. I'm not going to tell you not to do that. So I just want you to be free in the idea that you have a story to tell and you have an object, and it's like, how do I use this object to tell this story? So I'm going to give you 10 minutes and then we're going to all come back and share, if that's okay. Those who are not using video, it's completely fine if you want to do something that's audio, purely vocal, or you can write it into the chat. You could even take a series of pictures and add it as a file. You could share screen. So yeah, whatever you want to do. If you want to be away from the screen, that's completely fine as well. So we can just say that we'll come back at 7 minutes past 3. So I hope that was interesting in some way. Maybe it was frustrating, but frustration's good sometimes. Yeah. So again, I think for the sake of time, if it's okay, I'm just going to go across and pick who I can see on the screen instead of us like, you know, doing that awkward thing of like, who's going to go next? Because I want to hear from everyone. And we've only got 23 minutes. Time goes so quickly. Yeah, and I want to try and leave a bit of time at the end for anyone if they've got any questions or anything or any reflections. Yeah, so the person that I can see on my immediate right is Zoe. Are you okay to, yeah, present, share?
Sure, yeah, why not? Right. One more thing. Okay. I'll just start, yeah? So, this is a story that takes place over 48 hours. I'm Alaska. I'm Miguel. I don't love you anymore. What? Ow. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm leaving. Oh, I'll go abroad then. Goodbye forever. Okay, goodbye forever. Saturday afternoon. Okay, I'm gonna pack. Hello, yes, I'd like to talk to you about 1,000 stressful grown-up things. Oh, yes, okay, flat, blah, 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 move to Wigan, blah, 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 broken glass all over the floor. Okay, utility bills, council tax, blah, 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 blah. Okay, goodbye. Saturday night. Yes, hello, I would like 4 beers. Okay, I have absolutely no respect for you. I know that. 4 more beers, please. Okay, then. Another 4. Oh, fine, okay. 3 a.m. Sunday morning. Monday morning. Zoe looks like absolute shit. Is she okay? Oh yeah, she just lost her job and her relationship and her home in one fell swoop, so. All right, that makes sense. Yeah, she looks terrible. I feel weak. I'm not handling this. I feel like a domesticated dog who's been released into the wild and I have no idea how to survive on my own. You're the most resilient person I know. What are you talking about? Well, most people in your case would have dropped out, but you haven't even taken a day off. Resilient.
That was great. Thank you so much, Zoe. Yeah, thank you for going first. I know it's not easy. That was so good. Like, you didn't have to do a lot, but I think the fact that you were using different alcoholic drinks, I assume that they're all alcoholic, told an extra layer, an extra story. And because it was this kind of childishness of like this distance as well of playing it through these objects, it kind of you got this sense of like a denial or a distance there, or having to grapple with something that feels adult or beyond you. And yeah, so I thought that was really interesting. It definitely worked, and it was quite comedic. So yes, thank you very much. Tom, you're next on my little list. That's all right, Alex. Thank you for rejoining. Yeah, so hand over to Tom.
Yeah, so my item was a train ticket. So my idea was, I wasn't sure yet whether it would be spoken or would just be like a series of train tickets that would be printed out, but it would be like Liverpool to France, start date July 2000, valid with under 12 rail card. Next train ticket, France campsite to France discotheque, must be used in conjunction with Ben Sherman shirt and knockoff Brute aftershave bought in market. I'm not quite sure how it continues going with the train tickets, but yeah, it was quite nice. I think it would be good for the journey by the end. But yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Gabrielle?
Okay, my item is a hat. Okay. The unacceptable language stopped. The lads played, swore, came into our garden, chucked rubbish, but stopped the language. It's lockdown, right? Height of summer. Everyone is stuck inside, frustrated, bored, scared. I normally try and make people comfortable, calm, not embarrassed. Welcome. No form of bigotry can be accepted, so I had to stand up. I stopped. I stood my ground. My line had been crossed and I stood my ground, strong and rigid, and it worked. I get it. Frustration leads to all sorts. They broke our fence so they could get into the garden for the ball without having to knock on. They chucked their rubbish in our garden. They swore loads. That's fine. I swear loads, especially when I'm bored and jobless and locked down. But the line was crossed when they started to use bigoted language. I called the neighbour. I was scared. My sweat like stung through my armpits, but I called her over for a chat. I hate conflict. I'll shut up before I put up. But I had to stand up for what I believed in. But she gave me every excuse, all the ones you've heard before. My best mate is, their uncle is, etc., etc. The next door neighbour's grandkids had moved in with her. Teenage boys, homeschooling, hot weather. Like I said, bored, stuck inside, scared. The world is changing. Enough was enough. Standing your ground and standing up for your beliefs don't have to lead to conflict, but when it does, take a breath and remember why you're doing it.
Thank you, Gabrielle. So were you essentially, you mixed up the story and you were just pulling it out and great.
Yes, I wrote it all in order and then ripped it off, and
that's
actually
nice.
worked out quite well.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool. Thank you. Ian?
Hi there. My object was a notebook. I've always had notebooks and diaries and stuff, and it kind of reminded me that about 3 years ago I went through all my old notebooks and diaries from when I was a kid. And I got my first one when I was about 5. It was like a Paddington diary from Mum at Christmas. And then they gave me the same diary every year for about 7 years, so I was about 12, way too old for it. But when I went back, there's part of my writing thing, I went back through all my old diaries, most of which kind of petered out at the end of January and were pretty hopeless. But in there was some real kind of gems, and it's kind of amazing when you look back when you're older, much older like me, at your youth, of how many things you actually completely disappear from your mind unless you actually write them down somewhere and remember them, or you've got some kind of photographs or some other trigger. When I read this entry in my diary, I've been to the shops, like I had a best friend, John Page. Every Friday we get our pocket money, and we go down to the post office newsagent and buy as many sweets as we could with all the money. And the craze that year was for these things called gobstoppers. I don't know if they have them anymore, but they're, you know, like big round sweets, basically like a big ball of chewing gum. And I had one of these outside the post office, and it literally got stuck in my throat. And there were these old ladies there collecting the pension because it was Friday. And they basically upended me and got a hold of me by my ankles and shook me for about 2-3 minutes until this gobstopper came out of my throat, and you know, I lived. I completely forgotten that, and that was actually probably the first time in my life that I knew what mortality was, and that, you know, you could actually die. Because when you're a kid, you think, you know, you're superhuman, you can live forever. But I kind of brought home to me at that age, especially when my mum came running down the street and basically gave me a whack and said, "What have you been up to?" But it's funny just looking back on that, and that's probably quite a significant moment in my life at that time. And years later, it just completely gone. So keep a diary. That's my story.
Great. Thank you, Ian. Lizzie?
Hello. You'll need the chat for this, guys.
Okay.
I stood up and I found a pack of Pampers next to the bloke, and I thought that might be a really good thing to kind of anchor myself with. So I held this pack of Pampers and was sort of shouting at him like, "Why are you being a waste man?" and sort of holding it. And I was speaking louder than everyone else because I was really nervous, and actually ended up throwing the pack of Pampers towards him. But he got a big laugh, and I'd never felt that before, and it kind of gave me another adrenaline boost. And after that, it was kind of white noise, just talking, shouting at this poor actor because I wasn't trained at that point. And then I just remember clapping and whooping, and yeah, I sat back down. Like I'd started to find my voice.
Oh, lovely stuff. Thank you, Lizzie. John, you are next. So I'm kind of whipping through. I'm just like, time is against us.
So this egg is fragile. This egg was how I was once. An airline steward scared of heights. And you work on a long haul, flying all over the world, really? Scared of heights? It always seemed unreal flying up in the clouds, thousands of feet surfing the clouds. Florida, down route, 10 days. 13 of my colleagues all pressurized me to take part in a skydive. Apparently the night before I'd agreed to it. Apparently the night before I also sang I'm a Barbie Girl on karaoke, but no one was remembering that now, thankfully. But here I am on an airstrip, and before I know it, we're up in the clouds in a fragile, tiny, minuscule little plane that would probably fit into the Airbus that I was used to working on several times. I didn't have time to think about it. Out, floating, flying through the air. I didn't count. I didn't realize this egg. It's hard boiled. And that's when I realized I too am hard boiled.
Lovely extended metaphor there. Thanks, John. Degna.
Okay, this is my object. What seems to be the problem? I just need to get a renewal on my prescription. What seems to be the problem? No problem. Medication's working. What seems to be the problem? I just need to get an even keel. What seems to be the problem? People keep asking me what I need. What seems to be the problem? People keep asking me how they can help. What seems to be the problem? People keep asking, what seems to be the problem?
Beautiful visual refrain there. I think as well, because we know that there might be a cultural reference attached to the cloth, it gave this kind of visual idea of there being like a barrier and miscommunication without that having to be said as well. And even the colour as well of the cloth. So that was really lovely. Thank you. That was very effective. Lynn. Are you ready to go? Are you ready to share? Great.
Hi. Oh, my screen's gone weird. Sorry, 1 second. If I'd had this when he was there, then I would have thrown it into the engine of his car, so he would have felt as helpless as I felt with him. The end.
Thank you. What is it?
It's the heavy weight to pull blinds backwards and forwards. As you can see, I've just moved into a house, my door's not on, and everything's kind of falling apart, and I had to take this off. But it's like a lead weight. I've never seen anything like this before.
Cool. Thank you very much. Becky?
Cool. So my object was a disposable camera. So this is called Snapshots. An arm around my shoulder, keeping me in the frame with you, though my eyes tell the camera lens I've already left. The end of a long day in a hot office, colour-coding regiments of jobs into obedient order. An unexpected, hushed conversation hangs in the air, ready to drop chaos. Prague, a question mark. A plane ticket, a packed case, plans made not to have a plan, leaving my shadow behind to ghost walk through the weekly routine in my absence. Present in the moment. Walking through an airport departure lounge I've never seen, in a hazy, unfamiliar country I've never been to, until I catch against a stark white background my name, written large and held by hands attached to two smiling faces. In their hearts they create a temporary home for me. That's it.
Thank you. That was great. A lot of monosyllabic words there, so it really helped with that idea of the snapshot of things being really quick. Yeah, great. Barbara?
I'm going to try and share my screen, so bear with. Has that worked?
So yeah, my object was a bauble. And I think this is probably a response to Keisha thinking that I'm quite a vocal person, which just kind of reminded me of when I started university, because I'm like chronically shy. There's a reason that my camera's not on. Very introverted, hate meeting new people and talking to people that I don't know. It makes me sweat even more than today's weather. So I've created a kind of picture book, I suppose, which in my head was much better and animated and didn't include, you know, my fingers kind of manipulating the bubble, but there's something about the kind of elasticity of the bubble and the fact that you kind of have to adapt to these situations that I thought was quite interesting. So this is page 1. When I started university, I was alone, shy, unattached, avoiding contact and confrontation. That's not page 2. On the first day, I couldn't find my seminar. I wandered unfamiliar corridors until I encountered someone in a similar situation. I knew this was the moment I had to be brave and pretend I was more confident than the knot in my stomach revealed. Suddenly, I was smiling, speaking to a stranger. The stranger became a friend, and the world seemed to shrink. You get back what you put out.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was great. The simplicity of that was just beautiful. Who have I got? I've got two people left. Is it Alex and Jess? Yeah, sorry that we've only got 3 minutes left, guys. I'm happy to stick around for another like 5 minutes to answer any questions, if that's all right, Hannah, and if anyone else can stick around. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, Jess, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so I used just the rainbow colours, so I've got some dodgy poetry for you. Red, tacky, silent, the most opaque, run in between their teeth and squelched in the breathy pace of their small talk. Orange, slices upon me from the outside, hurtling onwards, lifting me from my seat of comfort and compliance. I am open, I am outraged, I am defiant. Green, simmering, still I don't retract my sting till long after they have gone, bathing in the bloomed light of a new side I never knew. Indigo, across the rainbows I painted on giant's rolls of shining paper. I poured glitter and stars and stuck stickers with complete confidence. That's it.
Thank you, Jess. That was great. I think what was nice is you kind of subverted what a rainbow usually represents, in that it usually has this kind of happy, flamboyant, in-your-face vibe to it, but by breaking it down and picking the individual colours, it actually gave a different kind of tone to that image. So that was nice. Alex, last but not least.
Hey, so my object was a candle light holder thing. So I wrote like a little mini monologue-y thing. It was like the candle matches were side by side with you. You're always in my proximity. It was inevitable. It wasn't if, it was when. Vicky's 18th. I was really self-conscious because I put my hair in a pony for an 18th, a pony. But I felt warm inside and confident the second I saw your dimples. It was the end of the night. I'd driven in my Nissan Micra, choosing independence over alcohol, unlike me. My mates all crushed up inside, waiting for me. Our first kiss. I held the steering wheel with both hands for once to keep me steady. Fast forward a few months later, you tell me it's no biggie, but you're talking to someone else. Ow. And it's our mate's little sister. Fuck, I've just burnt myself. I blow out our candle and I'm surprised by this immediate and deeply rooted self-love within me. This isn't what I deserve. 17-year-old me was so fucking wise. I just wish that candle wasn't the birthday ones that don't stay out, because after 6 years I'm left breathless and not in the good way.
Thank you. That was great. It was nice to have that focus of the candle. Like, my brain really stayed with that image as you were talking. And I hope maybe it made you tell the story in a different way as well, of like honing it in on a certain image. So yeah, we're literally at 3:30. So thank you so much. I hope that this was helpful or useful or provocative in some way, and kind of brought you into my brain in terms of how I think in terms of storytelling. I'm all about kind of restriction and just seeing what happens when you really set yourself quite a specific rule. If anyone's got any questions, as I said, I'm happy to stick around for another 5 minutes. Otherwise, it was lovely to meet you all, and I hope you all find coolness, whether that is in the corner of your shed or, you know, just opening your fridge maybe, standing there for a little bit, whatever you need to do.
Yeah, we have got time. We're not going to get booted out of Dr. Trixie's Zoom room. So if anyone has got any questions, feel free to unmute and fire away, or if you'd rather put them into the comments box and I can feed them through. But if anyone has to dash off, do feel free to disappear. You don't have to stand on ceremony.
hear a little bit more about how you kind of
Sorry, Jess, didn't hear that properly.
I'd love to hear more about how you approach in actually performing. Like you mentioned your one-woman show, how you kind of approach unusual forms in that. Like, would you ever perform the Noughts and Crosses poem you did?
I have performed it. I've had to like rewrite it in the way that I wrote it originally as a poem and kind of read it. Yeah, it's a tricky one for me to perform, and I've tried performing it with the poem behind me as well, so people get that kind of visual part of it. So that seemed to work as well. In terms of how I work in general and thinking about devices, for example, with the Man on the Moon show, as I mentioned, my relationship is with my dad, mainly made of books, so the set is pretty much books. There's a sofa and then everything else is books, and I talk about going shopping, I talk about getting on the bus, I have a phone, but it's all a book, everything's a book. And at first when I started doing that, I was like, this just feels weird, it feels ridiculous, but then it just makes more and more sense, because the story is also about like the interruption, the intrusion of the books, how that's all I have to my dad. And also it's a comment on his mental health and my own mental health. So it really helps with that kind of imagery. I don't have to say anything, I don't have to behave in any particular way, but if you see me stood there talking to a book, that's gonna give across a certain kind of message, and I don't have to say anything about my mental state, if you get what I mean. So it's a way, I really like playing with costume and objects as a way of getting across an extra story that I don't have to tell. I'm working with another artist at the moment called Tammy Reynolds, and she did a performance the other day that blew me away. She's a drag queen, she's been diagnosed with dwarfism, so she really likes to talk about how she's represented in the media, which isn't very well. Her drag name is Midget Bardot, and she did a performance where she sat on a ladder dressed as Snow White, and it was just great. And she's just having a big rant, but she doesn't have to say anything. She doesn't say anything about Snow White or anything like that. And I was just like, this is perfect. So that's the kind of work that I'm interested in, and I like to make, where I really try to merge the visual and the other objects and devices that you can use to tell a story, so that then it lets you work, you write in, have a bit more space, and you don't have to do so much exposition or worry about trying to say everything just purely through like text and dialogue and stuff like that. Yeah, so I hope that kind of helps to explain. And also with my show, it's an Afrofuturism show, and we wanted to play with the idea of coming from the real world and then going into somewhere that's like space. So I have a raincoat on that looks very subtle, but then by the end when I put the hood up, it looks like I'm a spaceman or space person. So yeah, it's just that kind of stuff that I like to think really holistically when I'm making a piece of like, what are all the elements I could play with to tell this story.
Amazing,
thank you. The question. Yeah, Gabrielle.
That was ace. Thanks so much. That was I haven't worked like that, and that was brilliant. So thank you. And just going off what you said about merging the visual, so it's not as expositional. Do you start with the story and then think how that can be reflected within like costume and props and objects, or do you take different things?
I think, yeah, it's a mix. Sometimes I'll be in a situation like this where I've been given a provocation and then something comes out and I'm like, oh, I'm going to pursue that. And yeah, no, that is what happened with my show actually, because I didn't know I was going to talk about my dad. We just had to bring objects in, and I ended up doing a story with this book on my head and talking about my dad, and I was like, oh yeah. So that's where that happened. But yeah, like with the Noughts and Crosses poem, I'll be like, is it a written poem? Is it a performance piece? Like, what is it? I'm not restricted by like what form it could take. I'm just like, what am I trying to say, and what's the best way to get that across? And I'll just keep playing with what form it could take until it makes sense. Yeah, and sometimes it is as explicit as that. So I was like, this is about the Noughts and Crosses book, I'm going to turn it into Noughts and Crosses tables. And I was like, is that a bit cheesy? But like, no, it makes complete sense. So yeah, I hope I've answered the question. But yeah, whenever I'm stuck, I've just got a box of nonsense and I'll just pull something out. I'm just like, okay, is this related to it? Because sometimes randomness is a blessing. Thinking that you know it all is not helpful.
Fab, thank you. Thanks.
Okie dokie. If we've not got any more questions, we may as well wrap it up then. Yeah, thank you so much for engaging with me. And yeah, I hope you all have a lovely week. And yeah, see you all soon, hopefully.